They're popular for both dine-in and carry-out. Now, the word is getting out about Wings Etc's appetizer lineup. From the ultimate nachos to the deep-fried pickle spears, frankly, they're irresistible. Friends are sharing time together at Wings Etc. They've got dining rooms filled with HD TVs tuned to the best sports programming, including NFL Sunday Ticket. The people at the next table are talking about Wings Etc's daily half-pound lunch special, starting at just $6.49. Plus, Wings Etc. has food and drink specials throughout the week, including 59-cent wings every Monday. Plus, there's the kids menu, and Wings Etc. is family-friendly with video games in the dining room. And the whole community is excited about how Wings Etc. is locally owned and operated, and they're proud to support local athletes, their families, schools, and teams. I guess Wings Etc. is a really big deal around here.
Flu season is here, but there's something else going around that can be even more contagious, and that's hope. Rite Aid is committed to spreading hope, not the flu. In honor of all our customers who get a flu shot, the Rite Aid Foundation is donating over $1.8 million to more than 350 KidSense charities committed to the health and well-being of children in our communities. So come in today and get your flu shot. No appointments necessary, and it's free with most insurance. Rite Aid. With us, it's personal. Flu vaccines available while supplies last. Age restrictions apply in some states. See pharmacy for details.
What makes a holiday card unforgettable? Personality. And no one makes it easier or more affordable to create a holiday card full of personality than Vistaprint. Right now, get 50% off all custom holiday cards. That means 30 cards start at just $13.99. With hundreds of stunning designs, your personality will shine through with every card you send. Just go to Vistaprint.com today and enter the promo code HOLIDAY to get 30 holiday cards starting at $13.99. That's Vistaprint.com, promo code HOLIDAY.
And now, your ESPN Radio Network local weather forecast.
From the National Weather Service, a mostly sunny sky today with a high of 42. Tonight, a 20% chance of some light snow. Otherwise, mostly cloudy with a low 32. Slight chance of a wintry mix tomorrow and a partly sunny sky and a high reaching 42. Tomorrow night, partly cloudy, low 21. Looking ahead at Wednesday, partly sunny skies with a high 35 degrees.
You're up to date with the latest weather forecast right here on the ESPN Radio Network.
This is Mike Golick for the best in local sports talk and play-by-play. It's SEMO, ESPN.
This is a proud presentation of Mississippi River Radio Sports, the sports authority.
Check this out right here.
Do it! It's time now for the Redhawks Coaches Show on the SEMO ESPN Radio Sports Network. The Southeast Coaches Show airs at ESPN 92.9 FM and 1220 AM from Wings Etc. in Cape and Jackson. This is your chance to delve deep into the Redhawks basketball season with head coach Rick Gregg. So what do you say?
Come on, let's go!
Let's go! Let's go live to Wings Etc. on SEMO ESPN.
Welcome in. We're at Wings, Etc. in Cape Girardeau for the final edition of the Coaches Show prior to the new year. This will be our last show until January 3rd because of the holidays and the way that all the holiday travel and game schedule works out. So this will be our last Coaches Show until we have a Tuesday show on January 3rd, and that will be over in Jackson. So we'll be off for 2 weeks. Still time to stop by and join us for lunch, and you can, of course, enjoy their award-winning jumbo wings, and they've got the lunch specials on days that are called Monday, and that means the 59-cent wings for their award-winning jumbo wings. If you'd like to try the rest of the menu, they've got freshly made burgers, wraps, subs, quesadillas. I just ordered a chicken salad, a grilled chicken salad. You can grab an entree salad. They have smoked ribs, much more. Their appetizer lineup includes their ultimate nachos and their deep-fried pickle spears. And you'll notice all of the high-def flat-screen televisions. They've all got the latest sports tuned in. You want to watch Monday Night Football tonight, it will be right here on the big screen here at Wings, Etc. And you can choose between Cape Girardeau or the Jackson location. The Redhawks head coach, Rick Ray, is here as we get ready to, you're getting ready to embark on a long road trip. You're getting ready to play in the Las Vegas Invitational, and it's kind of an interesting format, and we see this a lot with a lot of the classics and tournaments now in college basketball, where if you're playing 4 games like you are, sometimes a couple or 3 of them are at actual sites of another team. So in other words, you're playing a road game in essence, but I don't know if they count it as a neutral site game. So we'll be leaving on Friday to go to Missouri State. And then you'll go to DePaul and then fly right to Chicago to play Chicago State and then either Troy or Cornell right before Christmas. So you're looking at that's a week on the road.
Yeah, I tell you what, and it's good that our guys are in finals this week, so they don't have the school obligations and end up missing class. In these MTEs or tournaments, what usually happens is the so-called host team gets 2 home games. So Missouri State and DePaul are the host teams, and by happenstance, we were already scheduled to play Missouri State. So when we got involved in MTE, it kind of like made us have a home and home with Missouri State, even though it wasn't planned out scheduling-wise that way. So we'll go to Missouri State on Saturday as part of that Las Vegas Classic, and then we'll go to DePaul. And then instead of coming all the way back here, we'll just fly out of Chicago and go right to Vegas and then play those 2 games there.
I'm sure you've flown out of Chicago before, man. That's tricky. That is a busy environment, especially around the holiday season. It's going to be a jam-packed Chicago airport. I don't know if we're going out of O'Hare or not.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going out of O'Hare or Midway. I would imagine that we're going out of Midway just to try to avoid some of that traffic, although I know DePaul's campus is obviously closer to O'Hare. But Tom Berryman, our director of operations, is on top of that. But I would imagine that we're going out of Midway.
And so the way that it's set up then, you would fly out on the 20th and get to Vegas on the 20th, not play to the 22nd. So the guys actually might have a little time to kind of get a look at Las Vegas. I'm sure many of them have never seen it other than on television.
Well, I tell you what, one of the things that happens with AAU basketball is guys get an opportunity to travel now. And so sometimes guys have been to Vegas a couple times because they have all the AAU tournaments out there in Vegas and Orlando and places like that. So I imagine like at least half of our guys have been out there just involved with AAU basketball. But it's always good when your guys get a chance to get away and do some sightseeing and things like that. We'll be close enough to the Strip that guys can get there if they need to get there, but it will be far enough away so there's no sort of after hours nighttime activities on the schedule either.
And you'll always have 1 or 2 guys when it's time to hop on a jet that have never flown before. Now it becomes increasingly rare now, but some guys it's their first time flying. I've seen that over the years. I don't know if that'll be the case for this year's roster.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, obviously we got some guys there from overseas, Serbia and Cameroon, so they obviously been on airplanes. But I think there's at least one guy, and I can't remember which one it was, that has not been on the airplane, so that's always something new for them. You'll find out a lot of times that one of their parents has never flown before when you start talking about bringing people in for official visits, and that's always a unique situation.
And what's always tricky, especially when the basketball team flies, is finding you've got to work extra hard to get a seat where there's a little extra leg space for some guys that might be tall, like William Chenga and Antonius Cleveland or a Trey Kellum.
Yeah, I tell you what, one thing that always happens is sometimes you'll see like regular passengers, they have something with leg room and they see somebody walking on that's 6'8" or 6'9", and a lot of times they'll just give up their seat and say, "Oh my goodness, like you can't fit in that seat right there." And so that's awfully kind of some of the passengers end up doing. But we'll search and look for that leg room, trying to make sure our guys are accommodated.
I thought I'd come with a good stat to the show today. There is only one team in Division I college basketball. I think there are 351 teams now, at least that rank statistically in Division I. There's only one team in the nation that has 4 true road victories already this season.
Yeah, I just saw that on the stat. I think Jeff Goodman with ESPN just tweeted that out probably about two hours ago. So I did see that. Unfortunately, one of those victories was against us, but John has done a really good job with that team. It's his second year there. And just the thing I told him after the game is, like, obviously he has some good pieces there with guys that can shoot the basketball and legitimate post threat and McDonald. But what I liked about his team was the way those guys, like, talked. And then more importantly, we're going to show some clips of their bench. Every time there was an exciting play that happened for Northern Kentucky, the way those guys were up in unison, and it was genuine. It wasn't like, hey, we have to stand up because the coaches told us to stand up and applaud. Like, it was a genuine appreciation for what their teammates were doing out on the court. So, you can learn from games. You obviously want to learn from wins, but just things like that you can show your guys as far as, like, hey, this is a nice bench decorum and some of the way those guys are involved.
So the only team in the country that has 4 true road victories right now is Northern Kentucky. They've won 4 games in a row. They've won 6 of 7. And man, they're good.
Yeah,
I mean they're really good. That the 4 true road wins. That's not a fluke.
No, I tell you what they have is they have a really good inside-outside combination. And I think anytime that you have a team that has a legitimate threat in the post like McDonald does, and then they also have some perimeter power too. Their point guard, the transfer from Coffeyville Community College, is a guy that can really break the defense down and also make shots. And then they have guys that can shoot the ball too that play off of it. So, you know, they've put together a good team there. They have some pieces, and more importantly, those guys have bought into their roles.
And John Lannon, he was a longtime assistant at the University of Alabama. This is his opportunity now to be a Division I head coach. Had you guys crossed paths? I mean, you're in the SEC together, so I figure you probably know him.
Yeah, I tell you what, I got to know John when he was at Alabama, and I was an assistant over at Clemson. And we butted heads a little bit recruiting, especially in the Atlanta area. There's a couple guys that he was recruiting, a couple guys I was recruiting. He won a couple of wars. I won a couple of those wars. But he always has done a really good job of like recruiting that Atlanta area. And so now I think he's originally from that area in Kentucky. So like that's right on the border. It's right. He really can drive 10 minutes and be in Cincinnati.
7 miles out of Cincinnati.
Right. So it's a really good job. And it's a newer school, and so all their facilities are brand new, and they've really done a good job of investing into that basketball program. So I think it's a good job, and he's done a good job with the resources there.
Yeah, I think they won 9 games last year, and he's got a pretty good roster going on right now.
Yeah, and I tell you what, one of the kids that's on that team, we recruited really hard. And he comes off the bench, Mason Faulkner, for him, and he's going to be a good player for him. Played 30 minutes or 29 minutes in the game against us and did a good job. So he's going to be a good player, kind of a longer point guard that can really defend, break the defense down. He's going to have the ability to end up making shots. So he was somebody we recruited really hard. He actually played AAU basketball for Kenneth Fareed's AAU team. So our assistant, Chris Moore, has some ties into that program.
All right, they're a team that came in shooting the three-point shot pretty well. Boy, they really shot it well on Saturday, including Cole Murray. He came in with 181 career three-pointers. So, I mean, that's his specialty, is shooting the three-man. And he got off early and got into a rhythm. And when guys who are really good shooters start to get into a rhythm, that probably makes you a little nervous.
Yeah, and the scouting report on him was just simply make him bounce it. I don't believe he's taken a two-point shot the whole season. So we knew what his specialty was and what he likes to do. Unfortunately, we had so many breakdowns in our transition defense, and that's something here. We have today off. We had Sunday off, but we're going to come in starting tomorrow, and we're going to look at film as a team and show them those little things that we do in our transition defense really affect what happens on the other end. So, for instance, like they get the rebound, and you're trying to like steal the rebound or stay there and jam it and things like that instead of sprinting back. Well, that half second of you not sprinting back leads to them having an open shot on the other end. So we've got to do our assignments better. And quite frankly, me as a coach and our assistant coaches, we've got to make sure we hold guys accountable for that in practice so those bad habits don't carry over to the game. And when you play an elite shooter like him, then it shows up, and then guys will realize how important it is. But we don't want to wait until that point in time. So we've got to have better practice habits and making sure guys are doing what we ask them to do in our transition defense so we don't have those breakdowns in transition.
So really sometimes when the three comes out of transition, it can be an aggressive mistake by your players because you're aggressively trying to swat a rebound away or try to jam somebody up on their way down the floor. An aggressive mistake rather than I'm just not giving the effort that you want to get out and defend the perimeter.
Right, and it boils down, just do your job. We have what we call two safeties. So as soon as the shot goes up by us, it's those guys' responsibility just to sprint back. And so we don't want those guys running back and trying to chase people down. They should already be down the court and hopefully directing traffic and talking. So just a little thing as far as like not sprinting back as soon as the shot goes up, or you standing in the corner and kind of watching the result of the rebound, like really puts you at bay in transition defense.
So it's simplistic to say that really the 3-point shot decided the game. I know that's simplistic. There are a lot of different things, but they outscore you. They hit 13 threes. You hit 3, so that's 39-9 in 3-point shooting. You have more field goals than they do in the second half. You outscored them from the free throw line. The 3-point shot was a big difference in the game.
Well, I think if you look at two stats in this game, the 3-point shooting, like you talked about, but I think the thing that's really under our control is our free throw shooting. I think we lost by 14, and we missed 16 free throws. And I believe some of those were front ends of 1-and-1s. So you have another opportunity to shoot a free throw after that. So if we can just make our free throws and then also not have those defensive breakdowns that lead to 3-point shooting, then I think we're right there where we need to be at. So these are correctable errors. We have some time here coming up where we're not going to be in school. Finals are going to be done and over with. We can bring guys in and do extra shooting, extra free throw shooting. I always say this time that you have in between semester breaks is the most vital time that you have in your program, because it's the only time that you get with your guys where they don't have any academic responsibilities. And so, what do you do with that time, especially on an individual performance basis? So if a guy is struggling catching the basketball or finishing at the rim or not making free throws or not making threes and he's a good 3-point shooter, then this is your opportunity to come in the morning or come in at night and bring those guys in individually and work with them where you normally don't have that time because of academic obligations.
Sometimes you can tell if you're going to have a tough shooting night. It didn't appear that was going to be the case. I think you made your first 9 free throw attempts and then went 10 for 26 after that. So you really got off to a good start from the line. Yeah,
and that's the most disparaging thing is the fact that, and I think it was more mental than anything. We weren't performing well on the court. And so when we were not performing well on the court, everything starts to go downhill. And so just because we're losing or we're not defending well or we're not scoring and doing live play, and now you got a chance to step up and knock down a free throw, I think mentally that we weren't into it at the free throw line as well too. So it was, oh, woe is me because of what's going on the court that we didn't step up to the free throw line and knock those down.
Daniel Simmons gave you some nice energy off the bench on the offensive end of the floor, Coach. He came in, scored 13 points, hit 5 of his 8 shots, but a guy that always has energy, but he brought productive offensive energy in the game.
Yeah, he's a guy for us because of how strong he is and the confidence he has in his offensive abilities that he's going to be able to come in and make some things happen on the offensive end for us. Sometimes he's a little bit too over-aggressive, and sometimes he takes a bad shot here and there, but he has the courage to step up and try to make plays, and that's what it's all about. There's a lot of guys that have abilities, but they don't they don't act on those abilities. Well, Daniel doesn't lack in confidence, so he's going to go out there and attack and be in the paint and try to make plays. He needs to become a better defender for us, and that's happening for him, especially off the ball. A lot of times they're making that adjustment to where you're reading scouting reports and doing some of the things that we do in our program that you probably haven't been involved with or been accustomed to in previous programs. It ends up like, hey, there's a catch-up time. But he's a guy for us that when we throw him out there, we know he's going to have the ability to get into the paint and make a play.
Antonius Cleveland led you with 16 points. He had 6 rebounds in the game, a block shot, 3 steals. The only struggle he had was the free throw line, 3 of 9. So we just had Antonius on the show, and he said, man, it's all mental with me when it comes to the free throw line. That's the first thing he talked about.
Yeah, and I tell you what, he's shown the ability to knock down free throws. Had a great start here. He's had this is his second game where he really struggled from the free throw line. But he's a guy that's more than capable of knocking down that free throw. He just got to, like you said, he's got to come in and get a rhythm. It's all about habits, so he's got to come in here and shoot more free throws, and he'll have the opportunity to do that. But he also has to step up and knock them down in crucial situations, and I believe he'll be able to do that.
Turnover margin was good for you again. You're among the nation's leaders in turning the ball over the least amount of times. You forced 20 turnovers, which is very good. You outscored them in points off turnovers 22-10, so that was a positive.
Yeah, the thing that sticks out to me, though, Eric, and it's about our decision-making when we play advantage basketball. And what I mean by that is when it's a 4-on-3 or a 3-on-2. Like you said, we forced 20 turnovers, but I think we only had 6 fast break points. So that means that we're turning the ball over, making people turn the ball over, but we're not getting anything out of it. So if you were playing football and so you're turning the ball, you force a turnover, and all of a sudden, instead of you getting 7 points, you end up getting 3 points, or you get no points, then it's like you didn't take advantage of that turnover. And I think that's what's happening with us a lot. So we got to do a better job of getting out in transition and making people pay for turning the ball over, because when you force 20 turnovers, which is a phenomenal number, but you only get 6 fast break points, you got to really examine what you're doing once you get that turnover.
So in other words, when you've got numbers, you're not seeing what you want to see as far as turning those numbers into baskets.
Exactly. I mean, and that's what you want to do is against Central Arkansas, for instance, we forced a lot of turnovers. And when we forced those turnovers, we were able to get out in transition and make them pay for it. But against Northern Kentucky, we forced those same turnovers, but we didn't make those guys pay for it on the other end.
Fast break points, they had 16, you had 6. As you mentioned, and in part of those fast break points ended up with being 3-point shots, right?
Yeah, exactly right. And some of those things were very, very preventable. I think we ended up with 14 turnovers, which our goal is always to be at 12 or below. I think in our last game against Missouri State, we only had 6 turnovers, which is phenomenal. But we want to turn the ball over less ourselves. That's the most important stat that you have on the offensive end. But for us, when we had those turnovers, I think there was something that was really correctable as far as us getting back and talking. I think that's one of the things that we struggle with is our communication. We're back. There's not any numbers. We just simply didn't talk and point and get to a man with a sense of urgency.
What do you do to try and prod them to increase the communication level a little bit?
Well, there's only 2 things you can do when you're talking about guys buying into something that you think is important. 1, run them for the mistakes they have, or 2, don't play them. I mean, that's it. And so guys got to have some intrinsic motivation in order to go out and help the team and help themselves. So, what we're going to do here is we're going to start guys not talking, guys not doing some of the things we have to do is just hey, while we're playing, just keep track of guys not doing those things. And at the end of practice, run them for it. And so now, once they start running for them, maybe they'll start holding themselves accountable because they didn't want to run at the end of the practice. Then obviously, if they don't continue to do those things, then playing time is always the biggest motivation.
Intrinsic motivation. I like that. I like that term. We saw 9 minutes from William Chenga in the game. Coach, how do you see him progressing? Because there's a guy that gives you a lot of size and strength down in the low block.
Well, I tell you what, the thing with Chenga is we've got to continue to find a way to get him out there more. Because if you watch him play, he plays so hard. He plays so fast, and he's such a big body. The scoring is a concern for him. We've got to be able to at least get him to catch the ball and finish some of those opportunities that he has. But as far as a guy that's out there talking, a guy that's out there flying around and doing the things that we want him to do, provide that energy, he gives us that spark when he comes off the bench and he sprints out and sets ball screens so hard. And he's such a big body that when guards run into him, it's not a movable force for them. And then he dives to the rim. He just does all the little things we ask him to do with so much force and enthusiasm. So we've got to find a way to get him out on the court more, and we'll find those opportunities for him. He struggles a little bit scoring the basketball, picking up on some of the things in the scouting report, but he's giving an effort, and that's what you want to do, and you want to reward people for that effort.
Redhawks head coach Rick Ray, he is joining us. We're at Wings, Etc. in Cape Girardeau. It is the Redhawks Coaches Show, our final show until January 3rd. It'll be our Tuesday edition because of the holiday and the travel schedule. We'll be off until January 3rd. We'll be over in the Jackson location on Tuesday, January 3rd, our next game. Some other guys that we talk a lot about the starters, the guys that are scoring the most points, grabbing the most rebounds. Wanted to kind of talk about some of the other guys who are seeing increased minutes that maybe we haven't talked a lot about. And one of those guys is Jonathan Dalton, playing at the point for you, 14 minutes. It's his first experience with Division I basketball, and he got a slow start before the season started because he was coming back from an injury, and that slowed him down.
Yeah, he had the same problem that Dondre Duffus had. And he's struggled a little bit as far as getting his wind back, and he gets fatigued. And Then he also, as soon as he came back, he ended up spraining his ankle. So then he was out again for that. And then he had the concussion. So he's kind of just been injury prone and never got into a rhythm. So what we need to do is we need to get him out there and get him accustomed to some of the action there, because he has the ability to get into the paint. And what has happened in his past, when he got into the paint, he's never had to deal with the size and athleticism that he's dealing with now. So, it's kind of like those quarterbacks in football, as they progress from high school to college to the NFL, guys are open, but that window for guys being open is really short. And so, like, you've got to be precise as far as like being able to throw the ball in there, because that window closes so fast as you move up a level. Well, now that he's at Division I basketball, he used to be able to get into the paint easily because guys weren't jumping to the basketball. They weren't moving to the basketball. But more importantly, now that he gets into the lane, there's so much size and athleticism. He used to be able to finish against people in junior college and in high school, but at the collegiate level here at Division I, he can't finish in those. I mean, he's 5'9", 5'10", and he's going there trying to finish against guys that are 6'7" and 6'8" and 6'9" that are long, and he just got to realize that, hey, you've got to get into the paint. You did your job by drawing the defense. Now you just got to jump stop and kick out behind you, and now you've done your job. But him trying to finish some of those layups that he's attempting are just not feasible for him. And so I think once he starts to realize that he gets into the paint, he needs to kick out, and now he's got somebody an open shot. He's done his job.
So in other words, dial back on maybe a couple of the acrobatic shot attempts and find the open guy.
Exactly. And he's not doing out of selfishness, I don't believe. I just think that he's used to being able to do those things, and now all of a sudden you're not able to do those things, and he's got to make that adjustment.
Redhawks are going to play a team that they had just played, Missouri State. A rare situation where you play a team twice in the span of 10 days. But we'll talk a little bit about the Bears, and that game is going to be on Saturday. It will be in Springfield, and it's part of the Las Vegas Classic. It's a 5:05 start time on Saturday, so a different type of start time. We'll talk more about it with Coach Rick Ray. You're invited to join us. Lunchtime still going on, and they've got their lunch specials here at Wings, etc. Don't forget, it's Monday. That means 59-cent wings on Mondays at both locations, both in Cape Girardeau and Jackson. More with Coach Rick Ray when we return on SEMO ESPN.
See, Wings Etc. has those award-winning jumbo wings. They're popular for both dine-in and carry-out. Now the word is getting out about Wings Etc.'s appetizer lineup. From the ultimate nachos to the deep-fried pickle spears, frankly, they're irresistible. Friends are sharing time together at Wings Etc. They've got dining rooms filled with HD TVs tuned to the best sports programming, including NFL Sunday Ticket. The people at the next table are talking about Wings Etc.'s daily half-pound lunch special, starting at just $6.49. Plus, Wings Etc. has food and drink specials throughout the week, including 59-cent wings every Monday. Plus, there's the kids menu, and Wings Etc. is family-friendly with video games in the dining room. And the whole community is excited about how Wings Etc. is locally owned and operated, and they're proud to support local athletes, their families, schools, and teams. I guess Wings Etc. is a really big deal around here.
Season's greetings from the River Radio family.
This is Mike Rennick, Operations Manager for the stations of River Radio. I want to say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year from my family to yours, and thank you for listening. Have a great 2017.
This is Ed Groves, Director of Sales for River Radio, wishing each of you a happy and merry and blessed Christmas and a prosperous next year. And thank you for your business.
From the River Radio family to yours, have a Merry Christmas. Wouldn't the new year be a great time to make an employment change for the better? If you have experience in sales, maybe a corporate position like pharmaceutical or other territory sales or even automotive sales, but you're still trying to find the right match for your skills, then this message is for you. Rather than continue to work at a job that doesn't fit you, it's time to call us at the stations of River Radio. You're thinking, really? Radio? Well, here's the truth about radio. Even though other mass media has continued to fragment over the years, radio still has as many weekly listeners as it did in 1970. Here at River Radio, we need professional salespeople right here in the Cape Girardeau and Sikeston area. This is a chance for you to relaunch your career in a field where you can make an important contribution to local businesses and our community while earning a good living. Get us your resume and let's talk. River Radio, 324 Broadway in Cape, an equal opportunity employer.
And now, your ESPN Radio Network local weather forecast.
From the National Weather Service, a mostly sunny sky today with a high of 42. Tonight, a 20% chance of some light snow. Otherwise, mostly cloudy with a low 32. Slight chance of a wintry mix tomorrow and a partly sunny sky and a high reaching 42. Tomorrow night, partly cloudy, low 21. Looking ahead at Wednesday, partly sunny skies with a high 35 degrees.
You're up to date with the latest weather forecast breaking on the ESPN Radio Network.
Well, dude, obviously you'd be better as the focal point of the show. Would I be better for society? No.
Don't miss Russillo and Cano every weekday at noon on SEMO ESPN.
It's the Redhawks Coaches Show, live from Wings, etc. in Cape Girardeau with Redhawks head coach Rick Ray. And it's our final, as the holiday season approaches, this will be our last show until January 3rd, and that's going to be a rare Tuesday show. And we'll be back in the Jackson location. So we'll be able to recap everything that went on right before the new year. In fact, the Redhawks will have a conference game under their belt by the time we do the Coaches Show next. In fact, their conference opener is on the 31st at home against Eastern Kentucky, and it's right before they go on their Nashville trip to Tennessee State and to Belmont. So there will be a conference game under the belts of the Redhawks. They will play at home at 2:30 on New Year's Eve. So keep that in mind, as the next time the Redhawks play at home will be the 29th. So the next 4 games are all away from the Show Me Center for Southeast. The 29th against Henderson State, and that's part of a doubleheader. The women are going to play that night as well, and I think they have a conference game, as a matter of fact. So they'll open conference play on the 29th, and we'll talk much more about that coming up. But that's your next chance to see the Redhawks coming up at the Show Me Center. Don't forget, Wings has their daily half-pound lunch specials going on right now. It's lunchtime, $6.49 is what their daily half-pound lunch specials start at. They have food and drink specials throughout the week. The 59-cent wings on Mondays, and they have a terrific kids menu, so keep that in mind, Mom and Dad. And Wings is open 7 days a week and late on the weekends because the games oftentimes run late. Redhawks will be playing at Missouri State on Saturday at 5:05, a team that you just played, and you explained the quirk in the schedule. You already had Missouri State on the schedule when you decided to be involved in the Las Vegas Classic, which also means a game at Missouri State. I guess the weird thing would have been if you went there twice. At least you got one of the 2 games at home.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, if we would have opened up that home-and-home series in Missouri State at our place instead of at their place, then we would be playing them on the road 2 straight times within a matter of 10 days. That wouldn't have been good.
So at least the scouting report is still fresh in your mind here with Missouri State. I mean, it's, you've only played 1 game in between. They just lost a heartbreaking game. You and I were talking about it against Valparaiso, who's really good and has the nation's second leading scorer, Alec Peters. And apparently the game was tied at 81. Valpo had the ball, 5 seconds left, and Peters, who, again, is second in the nation in scoring, is shooting a 3. He did not make it, but he got fouled, and he hit all 3 free throws. Game over.
Yeah, a crushing way to lose the basketball game. One of the cardinal rules of basketball is never foul a jump shooter. And so, obviously, you talked about Alec Peters, and he's an unbelievable player, probably one of the top 5 college basketball players playing right now. And you foul a jump shooter, you never want to do that. So obviously guys foul once they get into the paint, but you want to make sure you don't foul jump shooters.
Boy, and that's a really good Valparaiso team. For those that haven't been following Valpo, they have been really good lately. They're now 8-2 and have the nation's second leading scorer. I mean, they're really good.
Well, the previous coach there, they were so good that he got the head coaching job at Vanderbilt. And now, like Alec Peters actually was a graduate guy. He graduated, so he could have went to any place in the nation and transferred and been eligible to play right away. And he stayed loyal to that staff, which you like to see because they promoted from within. And now you have one of the better players in college basketball back at Valpo, and he's doing an unbelievable job there.
Missouri State played you without two of their top players, two starters, Obadiah Church, who is a big shot blocker. He's not a big offensive guy, but he's certainly a force down in the paint, rim protector. And then their leading scorer, Ronnie Russo, did not play in the game. He's a junior college All-American that has transferred in there and led them in scoring heading into your game. And then he led them in scoring against Valparaiso the other night with 21 points. He's a little guy. 5'10", 153, so we didn't get a chance to see him. But if he missed your game with a concussion and then played against Valparaiso, chances are he's going to be out there.
Yeah, and I tell you what, that was one of the disappointing things about the Missouri State losses. We were playing them without two of their better performers, and then also without Ronnie Russo, who was their leading scorer. So that gives them two small guards, Russo and Miller. Both of those guys are 5'10". So what we need to do, and the scouting report won't change very much. I think they only end up taking maybe 12 threes in our game against us, and they've been averaging 27 threes attempts. So we want to make sure those guys run them off the three-point line, make those smaller guards try to finish inside against, our guys inside. And we did a pretty good job of that, but we lost a couple guys there. So we need to do a better job there. But they played zone defense all 40 minutes of the game, and we settled for three-point shots. And we're really going to work on our zone offense here these next 3 to 4 days as far as like attacking the gaps, getting the ball inside, and not settling for jump shots. The one thing you tell your guys is that when people are playing the zone, that means that you're getting a closeout every single time. And that's what you would want against your man defense. You would want to, beat them off a closeout, beat them off the closeout. We're on the zone, like they're closing out every single catch. And so it shouldn't change what you're trying to do, beat them on a closeout. And so we've got to make our guys see that and feel comfortable with that and get into the gaps, because if you have guys that are not getting into the gaps and drawing two against the zone, then it becomes one-on-one situation and you end up shooting jump shots.
They brought in two junior college All-Americans. I think they finished 6th in the Missouri Valley last year. They're picked to finish 4th, and the 3 teams ahead of them, or 2 of them were NCAA tournament teams last year in Wichita State and Northern Iowa. And I forget who the other team was picked to finish above them in the preseason poll. So everybody expected them to kind of take a little bit of a jump forward. They have. They bring in 2 JUCO All-Americans. We mentioned Russo, their leading scorer, but then Alize Johnson, for anybody that was at the game at the Show Me Center, they saw that guy, and he was a Shaquille O'Neal type guy in the first half. He doesn't have that kind of size. He's 6'9", 206, but I mean, just doing whatever he wanted to do, big and strong. He finished the game with you with a double-double, 18 points and 13 rebounds, and then he goes out against Valparaiso and has 21 points and 11 rebounds. I mean, this guy is a handful.
Yeah, and I tell you what makes him so different than a lot of other guys at that size is that he's actually skilled. He can make a three-point shot. He can dribble drive from the perimeter. He can turn around and face up in the post and score the basketball. So with his ability to rebound the basketball and his athleticism, he's not limited to being just a garbage guy. Although he's more than adept at going in there and getting offensive rebounds and finishing and using his size and athleticism to be a problem for you. But he's also skilled enough that he can beat you on the perimeter as well.
He had 5 offensive rebounds in the game against you. He had 4 more offensive rebounds against Valparaiso. He hit a 3 in the game against Valparaiso, and he hit a 3 in the game against you, the only 3 that he took. Now, he struggled from the line against Valparaiso, not a tremendous free throw shooter, but boy, do you play him the same way that you did the first time, or do you make an adjustment based on how good he was against you?
Well, there's 2 things that we've got to do that we didn't carry out our assignments on. The first thing is not letting him get the ball on the post, because like once he gets the ball on the post, even if he's so-called off the block, he's still a problem because of his ability to turn and face and go make a play. So we want to keep the ball out of his hands anywhere in that block area. The next thing is obviously we got to keep him off the glass. And oftentimes I tell people, when you're playing against a guy who is that good at offensive rebounding, your job is not to get the defensive rebound. Your job is simply to make sure that he doesn't get the offensive rebound. So what we want to do is, because sometimes we have to switch ball screen actions, you might have a Jamal Calvin or Jonathan Dalton on him at that point now. Their job is just to make sure that he doesn't get the offensive rebound. It's other guys' responsibilities to come downhill and rebound the basketball.
And it's not just like he is doing it against you. Second in the Valley is a good conference. Second in the Missouri Valley in field goal percentage. So, I mean, he's finishing, and that, includes a guy that does step out and take threes, and he's still second in their conference in field goal percentage.
Yeah, and a really good recruit for Paul Lusk and the staff to go out and pull somebody of that sort of caliber to come into your program. And the thing that fascinates me about their team is, DeQuan Miller was the MVC, newcomer of the year, and then they go out and now he's become their third leading scorer and not their leading scorer. So they went out and got even better than him, and that means you did a tremendous job on the recruiting trail.
And I think that also implies that the Missouri Valley coaches, when they were voting in the preseason poll and put Missouri State fourth after they'd had a couple of down years, they knew exactly who Russo and Johnson were and the kind of talent that he was bringing in, because they all recognize that in the preseason voting.
Yeah, and I tell you what, that ends up happening in recruiting. You end up recruiting against the same people all the time. So I'm sure they had to probably be a couple of Missouri Valley Conference foes, for those recruits with Russo and Alizé. So now those guys, hey, man, like Missouri State, they got two of those guys coming in that can really help their program.
All right, Austin Reuter was a guy that hurt you the first time out. He is one of their all-time great three-point shooters. He's leading the Missouri Valley Conference in made threes. He came into your game with 148 made threes, sixth on Missouri State's all-time list. And until the game against you, he had only taken one 2-point shot. So he was kind of like the guy you identified the other day, Cole Murray for Northern Kentucky. And Reuter did have a solid game against you. He finished with 16 points, hit 3 threes, and was a perfect 5 of 5 from the line.
Yeah, and the thing that's frustrating about that is, just carrying out scouting report on him. And he's a little bit different than the guy at Northern Kentucky, because the guy at Northern Kentucky is 6'7", so he has the ability to shoot over the top of you. So it's really important that you be aggressive with him and run him off the line. But with Reuter, I believe he's 6'3". Yeah, he's 6'3", so he's a guy that you should be able to run off the line and not give him good looks. So we did a poor job of just fouling scouting report on that.
And the one thing I will say, in watching Murray shoot and Reuter shoot, Reuter gets rid of it quick, man. I mean, it's in his hands and it's out.
Yes, and I mean, that's one of the things you have to do when, like, 6'7", Cole can afford to be a little late at times because he can shoot over the top of people. Well, Austin Reuter doesn't have that luxury of being able to shoot over people because of his size.
All right, Ryan Kreklow is another guy who is a three-point shooter. He's out of Columbia, Missouri, Rockbridge High School. But there's another guy that's got a little size as a shooter at 6'4".
Yeah, and I tell you what, he's one of those guys we classify as a stunt and stay guy, meaning that you could never leave him on any sort of a penetration or in and out action. So they've got two guys, especially when they're out there together, that can really spread you out and give guys like Alizé Johnson and Ronnie Russo and DeQuan Miller room to operate, because you can't leave those guys.
The other guy who has started several games, in fact, he had started every game until he missed their game against Air Force, was Obadiah Church. He's a 6'7", super athletic sophomore front court player. Came into the game leading the Missouri Valley Conference in blocks. In fact, as just a sophomore, he's already 11th on their all-time block shots list. I mean, he is a true shot blocker.
Yeah, and, talking about a guy that's not very tall, he's only 6'7", so he's not like a 6'9" or a 6'10" guy that's out there blocking shots. He has long arms, so has some length to him, but his timing and his athleticism, especially his second jump, is really good.
All right, so it'll be Missouri State on Saturday. I wanted to ask you, people are always asking, okay, how about the recruiting class? How are your guys doing, guys that you've already signed? I wanted to touch base just a little bit with your recruiting class. Some people may have missed it. Some people may want to hear about the 3 guys that you signed. Let's start with Khalil Cuffey, who is a really good shooter with a big, strong, physical Division I frame already, right?
Yeah, and before we go into Khalil, our 2 most important recruits right now are Joel Angus and Ray Kowalski. I mean, when you look at it, those guys are not going to play this year for us. So
two guys that could have been starters on opening night, right?
Yeah, and so to me, like their rehab and how they perform in their rehab and how they come back and how we develop them over this year, because I always tell those guys, just sitting out a year doesn't make you better. You know, sitting out a year and actually working on your game is what makes you better. So, you know, first thing they have to do is like attack their rehab. You know, I always say, hey, your game days are the days that you're in rehab. That's your game day. You have to attack it like that. But, you know, the progression that those guys make in their individual game, to me, is the most important thing in our recruiting class, because we have those guys coming back. But talking about Khalil, he's another young man that I think that improves our ability to shoot the basketball. Ray Kowalski obviously is an elite shooter, and we feel the same way about Khalil. But Khalil is also in that same mode of a Denzel Mahoney or Ray Kowalski, where he'll come in with the physicality to be able to play right away for us. He's 210 pounds, and he really probably weighed a little bit too much, had a high body fat, and he's really done a good job, and his coach has done a great job with working on him and getting that body fat down and getting sculpted. So, you know, he's a guy that can really, really shoot the basketball. He's a guy that also can create off the bounce if you come up and guard him. But the fact is, you have to guard him because he can knock down threes. So, like, he'll come in, and obviously the speed of the game and the adjustments and things like that, he'll have to adjust to. But at the same point in time, it won't be because of the physicality.
You know, that's interesting when you just look at your overall roster and say, okay, you've got 11 new names. They're not all eligible to play here, obviously, with Kowalski and Lewis, you know, redshirting. But you look at all the new names, and you look at the guys who are seniors, and you have 3 seniors, so they'll obviously be leaving the program. And you say, well, you basically got the same roster coming back next year. No, you got the 3 new guys that you signed, plus Joel Angus, who is not a factor on this year's roster, and Kowalski, who's not a factor on this year's roster, and you always have turnover. So that's at least 5 new guys who are not playing this year who are going to be on next year's roster.
Yeah, I think at the so-called mid-major level, if you look at teams that are really good and teams that have a chance to win, they're good because they have veteran, like, experienced rosters. So, like, you talking about guys that are juniors and seniors that have already been in your program. Sometimes guys have a lot of juniors and seniors, but they haven't been in your program. And so what you want is like guys that are older that are juniors and seniors, but you also want them to have been in your program for at least 1 to 2 years. And so that's what we're striving to be. Guys like Denzel Mahoney, you know, coming back into the program. Guys like Jonathan Dalton coming back into the program. And we'll lose a lot. I mean, Jamal Calvin is a young man that really has been a mainstay for our program. He goes out there and does all the right things. And Antonius Cleveland is probably one of the better players that ever played here at Southeast Missouri State in regards to ability. And he's been doing it since his freshman year. And Trey Kellum, you know, is a little undersized, but he's a guy that ends up being a matchup problem for most teams. So we're going to lose a lot. So we got to make sure we're doing our job on the recruiting trail and also developing the guys in our own program.
Okay, now Denzel Mahoney can play the 4 at 6'4". Cuffy, strictly a 2.
He's a wing. To me, there's not very much difference between what a 2 and a 3 does in our program. So he's a guy that can play the 2. He's a guy that can play the 3-4s. And we want him to be one of those guys that hopefully ends up replacing Antonius Cleveland because of his ability to shoot the basketball and score it.
All right. The guy who is going to bring you some size next year is Owale Odafin, and he's 6'8"?
Yeah, he's 6'9".
6'9".
Yeah, and he's a guy for me that he'll have 3 years in our program. He'll be like Jonathan Dalton, where he was a qualifier out of high school. But he'll come in, he'll give us size and length. He won't be a tremendous scorer from the very beginning. He's a guy that we're going to develop on the offensive end. But we think that between like him and William Changa, we'll have 2 guys at that so-called center position that really, really just play super hard. And so what we need to do is we need to put scorers around them to make them effective. But what we want those guys to be able to do is just like defend and especially defend ball screen action and defend at the rim and be a presence there, get offensive rebounds, but more importantly, just be able to finish plays off from all the good players. And I think those guys are more than capable of doing that.
In your time here, will he be the first true rim protector that you've had on the roster?
Yes, I believe so. I mean, he's a guy that I think tries to block every shot and tries to get every rebound, especially on the offensive end.
And the third recruit is power forward Justin Carpenter. Tell us more about him.
Well, I really like Carp. I think he's a guy that can be the foundation of our program. He just provides stability. He's a young man because of his skill level at 6'9" or 6'8" that can shoot the basketball. He can pass it. He can score off the bounce. He can score with his back to the basket. He really understands the game of basketball. He's been well coached. Been around some good programs. So I think as he adjusts to the physicality of the game of college basketball and he gets some maturation up underneath him, I think he has a chance to be an all-conference player for us down the line. Now, that may not happen right away as a freshman year because, like, when you're making that adjustment going from high school to college, it's hard because of the physicality of the game, especially when you're playing on the front court.
Yeah.
You can do it sometimes in the back court, and it's not that big of a deal as much. But when you're making that adjustment in the front court, when you're in there getting banged around by 21-year-old men and guys that are 22-year-old, fifth-year seniors and things like that, you're just not prepared for that physicality-wise. But I think once the physicality matches his skill level and he has a high intellect, really good high basketball IQ, I think he's going to have a chance to be an all-OVC player for us.
So of the three guys that we just mentioned, does Carpenter have the highest ceiling then?
Well, it's hard to say because I think Khalil is a guy that's going to end up being an elite scorer for us. So it's just like, when does that happen? Does it happen sooner for Carpenter or does it happen sooner for Khalil? But I think both of those guys, if you look at down the line, I think both of those guys as juniors and sophomores have a chance to challenge for being all OVC guys. Something similar to like an Antonius Cleveland, not there their freshman year,
right,
not there their sophomore year, but by the time they're juniors and seniors, like Antonius is, really good OVC basketball players.
Well, you could see little flashes when Antonius was a freshman, nothing like he is now, but you could see, boy, he's athletic, boy, he puts on some muscle and gets in the weight room and, just getting older and your body develops, you could see that he had a chance to be a good player if he worked hard, and clearly he's worked hard. So that's kind of what you're hoping for going forward with those guys.
Yeah, and I think you can see the same thing in Denzel Mahoney. A guy that, hey, is a freshman, like he shows a lot of promise and got a chance to be a good player for you. You can see that down the line when he's a sophomore and junior that, hey, he'll challenge for being an all-OVC player because look where he is right now. He's not going to do that on a day-in, day-out basis as a freshman because that's ups and downs that all freshmen occur. But you can see the promise that he has then. I think you'll see the same thing with Khalil and also with Justin Carpenter.
And Mahoney had 14 points and 4 rebounds against Missouri State. He had a couple of threes, went 3 of 9 from the field, but they sent him to the line a lot. He was able to work his way to the line against Missouri State, went 6 of 8 from the line. What did you think in the first matchup with Missouri State?
Yeah, and I think he can even do more. I think he has some opportunities, and we show him those things on film where he could have, either finished or he had an opportunity to make another play. I think Denzel was the only I think there's only 2 freshmen in OVC that are averaging double figures.
Right.
And Denzel is one of those guys. So, he's doing a great job for us, and I think he's going to continue. But what he has to do is he's already kind of a even-keeled, monotone guy. And then sometimes when things don't go well for him, he still goes even deeper into being that way. And so he's got to be a guy that shows a little bit more enthusiasm, a guy that shows a little bit more I'm into the game. Even though he cares and he does things the right way, it's just hey, you got to have a little bit more outwardly body language.
With the 3 guys that we just talked about, your recruits that you've signed and that are coming in next year, how much are you able to keep track of them during a busy college basketball season? How much are you able to check in on these guys?
Yeah, well, it's our job to do that. I mean, the whole deal about bringing guys into your program, you want to treat it like it's your family. And so you got to make sure you're building relationships. And that's our biggest thing I talk to our assistants about, is making sure guys understand that even though we're busy, we're never too busy to check in on them or see what's going on. It doesn't have to just do with basketball and academics. It's just about hey, how's things going for you? How's things with your girlfriend? What you got going on Friday night? Going to, just talking and making sure those guys understand that you care about them and you're reaching out to them, because you are a part of a family. And when you signed on or you committed to the program, you committed to be part of our family, and we're going to treat you that way.
Redhawks are leaving for just over a week on Friday, and they'll be taking trips to Springfield, Missouri, Chicago, Illinois, and Las Vegas, Nevada, getting back on actually Christmas Eve. So we'll talk more about that trip coming up with Coach Rick Ray. What are the Christmas plans for the Redhawks after the trip to Las Vegas? Much more from the Redhawks Coaches Show. Let's take a time out. We're at Wings, Etc. in Cape on SEMO ESPN.
Etc. See, Wings Etc. has those award-winning jumbo wings. They're popular for both dine-in and carry-out. Now, the word is getting out about Wings Etc.'s appetizer lineup. From the ultimate nachos to the deep-fried pickle spears, frankly, they're irresistible. Friends are sharing time together at Wings Etc. They've got dining rooms filled with HD TVs tuned to the best sports programming, including NFL Sunday Ticket. The people at the next table are talking about Wings Etc.'s daily half-pound lunch special, starting at just $6.49. Plus, Wings Etc. has food and drink specials throughout the week, including 59-cent wings every Monday. Plus, there's the kids menu, and Wings Etc. is family-friendly with video games in the dining room. And the whole community is excited about how Wings Etc. is locally owned and operated, and they're proud to support local athletes, their families, schools, and teams. I guess Wings Etc. is a really big deal around here.
Hear the Southeast Redhawks men's and women's basketball teams all season long on SEMO ESPN and Real Rock 99.3. Stream live at SEMOESPN.com and download the SEMO ESPN app to listen. Southeast Basketball brought to you by Moreland Pre-Owned Center on Seamers Drive in Cape. Southeast Health. When cost and quality matters, choose Southeast Health. Cape Girardeau Nature Center in Cape County Park North. And the Code family of dealerships in Cape and Anna, Illinois. Visit drivecode.com.
And now, your ESPN Radio Network local weather forecast.
From the National Weather Service, a mostly sunny sky today with a high of 42. Tonight, a 20% chance of some light snow. Otherwise, mostly cloudy with a low 32. Slight chance of a wintry mix tomorrow and a partly sunny sky and a high reaching 42. Tomorrow night, partly cloudy, low 21. Looking ahead at Wednesday, partly sunny skies with a high 35 degrees.
You're up to date with the latest weather forecast right here on the ESPN Radio Network. This is your local home for Mike and Mike, the Sports Huddle, and all your favorite teams. Get it all right here.
Makes my day go great.
On the SEMO ESPN Sports Network.
Welcome back. Final segment of the Redhawks Coaches Show with head coach Rick Ray. Redhawks getting set to head to Springfield, Missouri, and they'll play there on Saturday. And then they will bus to Chicago, where they will play DePaul on Monday. And then they will fly after the Monday game on Tuesday morning out to Las Vegas, where they will play on the 22nd and the 23rd. You know who your opponent is, Chicago State on the 22nd, but we don't know if it's going to be Troy or Cornell on the 23rd. Is that a tricky prep work to try and get ready for a team that 24 hours you don't know who you're playing?
Yeah, I tell you what we'll do is each assistant coach, our three assistant coaches that can do scouting, they'll each have a team. So we'll have somebody assigned to Chicago State. The other assistant will have Troy, and the other assistant will have Cornell. So one of those assistants will have the unenviable task of preparing for a team that we probably won't play. and so they'll do all that work. And then the hard part is how much information do you give to the players in that short amount of time, because you can't practice You can't go out there. You can walk through some things. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to overload your guys with too much information. You want to try to keep things pretty simple and rely on some principles. So, we'll get together, me and that assistant coach, and he'll show me some of the sets that they're doing offensively, some of the things they're doing defensively. Okay, how much of this information do we actually want to give to our players, because we want to make sure they're worried about the right things and not trying to get mad at them because they didn't remember a set play that we just showed them, less than 24 hours ago.
I know you don't take care of the travel arrangements. Coach Berriman, who does a great job with that, takes care of that. But the games will be played at the Orleans Hotel. Is that where the team is staying, or at a different place?
No, we'll be staying at a different place. Okay. I think we're staying off strip. I always want to make sure we get off strip. Now, when it's all said and done, if guys want to get into something, they're going to get into it no matter how far you're away from it. But we want to at least make them work to get on the strip.
All right, and the travel party will actually come back on Christmas Eve. So then the team will, I guess, disperse after that. Some will go home for Christmas.
No, we're actually we're coming back that night. So we'll be coming back the night before Christmas Eve. So we'll play our game in the afternoon on the 23rd, and then we have flights out that night on the 23rd. And what we're doing is we're actually flying guys to where they want to go. So some of the guys will be flying to Florida, North Carolina, wherever that might be at, right from there. We didn't want them to waste the time.
We're not flying Milos to Serbia.
No, we're not flying Milos to Serbia, or we're not flying Shanga over to Cameroon. But those guys all have places that they're going. So instead of us flying back all the way to St. Louis and then them getting to St. Louis and then next day flying out to someplace else, we're actually just going to fly them back to their particular homes right there from Vegas.
Awesome. So any of the players coming to your house for Christmas?
All the guys are going to be someplace this time. So, hey, we always welcome those guys with open arms. My wife, Brianna, does a good job of entertaining, and then Deacon and Mason love the players, like being around them. The Deacon gets there, he forces them to play them in basketball and things like that. So, but those guys all get a chance to go someplace and be at home. So we want that I think it's really important anytime you get a chance for Thanksgiving or Christmas, that you can get a chance to get guys away from it and kind of like be around family and get away from basketball and academics. I think you always got to take advantage of that.
And for Antonius, having to suffer through the Kansas City barbecue, he'll be able to get some Memphis barbecue for Christmas.
Yeah. That's really important.
All right, Coach, we'll leave on Friday to head on the long road trip. Thanks so much for your time, and we'll see you as we travel for the next week or so.
Thank you very much.
All right, don't forget, no coaches shows for the next 2 weeks. We're back January 3rd in the Jackson location, and that'll be at 12 noon, January 3rd, with Coach Rick Ray. So we will get you into ESPN Radio coming up. Thanks, everybody, for joining us for the Redhawks Coaches Show.
Southeast Missouri's ESPN Radio Sports Network, 92.9 KLSC Malden, 1220 KGIR Cape Girardeau, and 1470 KMAL Malden.
I don't know that I have as much of a problem with it as I think a bunch of other people do. I think you have to understand. Well, let me first say this. It's a legal play, which I think what you're referring to, Ryan. Right. You're allowed, as a receiver, you're allowed to go down and